Hello, everyone. My name is Smriti. I'm a security researcher at OpenZeppelin, as Philippe introduced. My talk is about the bridge security in blockchain. So, just a bit about OpenZeppelin. This is the company that I'm working for, and we are a security services company. So, what we do is we perform security audits for the projects and the clients that we are working for, and we also provide a suite of products for smart, secure development of smart contracts. So before we start talking about bridges, let's talk about blockchain trilemma. So blockchain trilemma is basically the term that we use to describe the trade-off between three key features of blockchain technology, which is basically scalability, security, and decentralization. Now, this blockchain trilemma isn't like a mathematical proof that it is impossible to get all three features in any of the blockchain, but it just is a very difficult task for any of the networks available to have all these three features together. So to bring a solution for this problem, what several networks have done is basically they have changed their consensus mechanism or done sharding to kind of increase their throughput. But then apart from the layer one solutions, there are innovative layer two solutions as well, which has involved the development of side chains, state channels, roll-ups, and so on. But the problem is that as these networks, they continue to spin up, as a user, you're confused at which chain you want to interact with. If you have been an existing user on, say, the Ethereum system, and you have been interacting with Ethereum Dapps, and if you want to go ahead and play with some of the cool features that Polygon network have, there needs to be a way on how you can convert your assets that you hold on the Ethereum chain to bridge to another network, which is where bridges come up. So bridges, by definition, it's basically pretty similar to what a physical bridge does. A physical bridge connects two physical locations together. Similarly, a blockchain bridge, what it does is it connects two blockchain ecosystems together, and it facilitates communication between these networks through the transfer of information and through the transfer of assets. Thereby promoting interoperability and creating just more connected blockchain ecosystem. So what are the advantages of using bridges? Basically efficiency. If you have been following blockchain space, you know that transaction fees on the Ethereum mainnet is crazy at the moment. So there are so many other networks where you can bridge your Ethereum token and you can still use your ethers, but you'll have to pay lower transaction fees. So for example, any of the L2 Ethereum side chains or L2 lower rollups are an example of that. Then another use case of bridge is cross-chain collateral. So for example, if you hold, say, Bitcoin, and you want to use that as a collateral for any of the decentralized applications which are running on Ethereum, you can definitely bridge your native Bitcoin token to the wrapped Bitcoin token on the Ethereum mainnet, and then use it for say yield farming or another kind of investment. Then, of course, bridges allow you to explore different blockchain ecosystems that exist and then hold crypto native assets. And when we talk about bridges, basically on a high level, you can classify bridges into two categories, which is trusted and trustless bridges. So trusted bridges are basically bridges which rely on third parties. So there's basically an intermediary which acts as a custodian of the assets that exist on that bridge. And then trustless bridges are fully autonomous bridges where smart contracts are used for transferring of assets. So let's talk about the security risks. But before we move on to the security risk of bridges, I think it is important to talk about composability. So, and this does not apply only to bridges, this apply to anything in the Web3 space. When we talk about interoperability, I think composability is very important, because when we are building or interacting with anything in the open economy, and when we have like systems that kind of talk to each other, we need to make sure that we are aware of all the risks which are involved in all those integration. Most of the projects that I have audited, or like we, even like other auditors at OpenZeppelin have audited, comes with trust assumption. Trust assumptions could be anything. Most of the projects would have a baseline trust assumption saying that like they feel that their admin can never be compromised. But then we have seen hacks happening in the Web3 space where such actors have been malicious and have performed rug pull. So it's to be honest, it's only a human intention of what they want to do. But as a user, you need to be aware of such kind of assumptions when you're interacting with a decentralized application. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. So the risks of using bridges. Of course, as it is, everything in the Web3 space is built on smart contracts. So there is a smart contract risk, which says that like, hey, if there is a bug in your code, it's most likely going to be the result of why a user lose funds. Then there are technology risks, which involves in like technical failures, software failures, a validator node goes offline, or if there is a human error when a user sends in wrong input data for the function that they're calling. So different kind of technology risk. And then of course, integration risk, as we discussed in composability, is like you kind of need to be aware of what are the other components that the bridges are interacting with. One of the main integration risks that we have seen in the past is with oracles, I suppose. So oracles are by design a point wherein, like, you know, if an oracle is attacked, it can just bring the whole decentralized finance application which runs on an oracle down. So it's just important for a person to be aware of what are the integration points. And then when we talk about trusted bridges, since they have an intermediary, there is definitely risk of censorship and custodial. So censorship comes when they have the power to stop a user from transferring their assets, or worse, just collude and like steal all of the funds. So now we'll possibly discuss a few hacks that has happened in the Web3 space, which involves bridges. So this was a silent hack. So the Rona network hack was actually reported, like that hack has been live for almost like 5 days before the Ronin team actually understood that they have been hacked. And they only found out about the hack after a user reportedly said that he is not able to withdraw his funds from a bridge. So, and this hack is by far the deadliest hack in the Web3 space, because approximately of $624 million of funds were stolen from the Ronin bridge. The reason of this hack was the insecurity of private keys of the validators. So basically, let me talk about the Ronin network first. So Ronin network is basically an Ethereum side chain that was built up for Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is basically one of the NFT-based gaming platforms. And the Ronin bridge is a bridge which allows you to move your assets from the Ethereum mainnet to the Ronin network, and thereby use it in the Axie Infinity gaming universe. So Sky Mavis is the developer of Axie Infinity and of the Ronin bridge. And what happened in this scenario is that, like, when they came up with this bridge runs on a proof of authority model, a proof of authority consensus model, which means that, like, you need to put your risk and reputation instead of like your funds, which is the case of proof of stake, or say computational power, which is the case of proof of work. So the Rana network was using proof of authority for their consensus mechanism, and what they needed was 9 validators running the network. And out of these 9 validators, 4 of the validators are actually from the SkyMavis's internal team. So what the attacker had to do was to target the private keys of the SkyMavis SkyMavis's team, and that is what they did. So what the attacker did in this case was to engineer a normal Web2 hack. They posed as a LinkedIn recruiter, and they tried to poach one of the persons who was working in the SkyMavis team, and they sent a PDF with the job description. And when the developer from the SkyMavis downloaded that PDF, their system, their computer system became buggy, and their private keys were compromised through the Web2 security bug. And with this, the attacker was able to get control of 4 validator nodes out of 9. And then there was one small tiny potential backdoor which was in the code, which allowed SkyMavis to act on behalf of AxiDAO, allowing the attacker to get more than 50% of the consensus validating nodes access. So the attacker was able to get 5 validators compromised out of the 9, and they stole so many funds from the Ronin bridge. So again, what went wrong in this entire system is, one, the system or the bridge wasn't decentralized enough. They had potential backdoors in their code, which they shouldn't have. And then they just had a lot of power given to one trusted entity, which in this case was SkyMavis. So moving on to the Harmony hack. So Harmony is basically Horizon's bridge, which allows you to move assets from Harmony, Binance's BNB Smart Chain, and Ethereum blockchain in a trustless manner. Which means that this is a trustless bridge. It runs entirely on smart contracts. However, this was still compromised, and private keys of some of the validators were compromised, resulting into an exploit of $100 million US. Now, what went wrong with Harmony hack is that they did not even have 50% consensus required to sign a transaction. They did have a multi-signature system in place, but they needed only 2 signatures out of those 5 validation scheme to accept and sign off a transaction. Again, it's pretty naive to have less than 50% for their consensus mechanism. Then let's talk about the wormhole attack, which brought down the Solana network. And so wormhole is basically a bridge between Ethereum and Solana. And in February 2022, the bridge was hacked for 325 million worth of coins. So if you know how the basic bridging of assets take place on a bridge is, basically you say you have 2 networks, network 1 and network 2. You kind of deposit your assets onto network 1, and what it does is it sends out a message to network 2 saying that a user has deposited some funds in the network 1. And what network 2 does is once it receives the message, it mints equivalent amount of token to the user provided address. So what this hacker did in the wormhole hack is it kind of fooled or faked a deposit of 120K Ethereum on the Ethereum mainnet. And then the wormhole bridge kind of sent a message out to the Solana network, and the Solana network minted equivalent amount of wrapped wormhole ether to the hacker's account. And that is how he was able to like take off 325 million US dollars. So again, what went wrong in this scenario is possibly the code which allowed the hacker to fake deposit his ethers. And yeah. So what are the consequences of such security breaches? I mean, of course, there is loss of assets, but more than that, like it causes major network disruption. When we were like, there was a hack on Binance Smart Chain and Binance Bridge, which halted the bridge for 8 hours. Now imagine the amount of users. Like Binance bridges or BNB chain is like the third largest chain in the DeFi ecosystem. So all the users were like unable to have access to the funds for almost 8 hours. And then like security breaches, they kind of like attract a lot of attention from regulators, lot of legislation changes, lot of legal changes, and then of course like it does a massive damage to the reputation of the chain. So closing thoughts is basically like, this is something that I asked the OpenZeppelin research team to give out as in terms of best practices when we look at bridges or like on smart contracts in general. First of all is like have zero trust mindset. Anything that you feel can go wrong would most likely go wrong. So keep looking into the code, try to break it. Don't trust just like the audit report or like the word of anyone else in the industry before you interact with any of the bridges or Web3 ecosystems. Look at the code yourself, try to understand what it is doing, and do not trust anything. Then the second thing is, of course, like have multi-signature transactions, have a minimum number of threshold, at least make sure that you have 50% of consensus for any number of threshold or any like 50% consensus for any transaction which has been successful. Make sure that the smart contracts are secure. Very basic things like have proper documentation, make it open source, do not reinvent the wheel, like build on top of the existing secure building blocks which are present in the ecosystem. Key management is like really, really important, especially when there are projects, and while most of the projects have role-based access control, it is really important for roles such as admin or approver to have proper key management so their private keys aren't lost. There should be real-time monitoring in place, incident response, so that you don't have to wait for 5 days for you to know that a system has been hacked. And then of course have regular audits, and not just audit, like proper test cases. Make sure that like you call other people to break your code, have bug bounties. So yeah, learn from other players in this ecosystem, see what they're doing. Do not just like fork their code, like respect their licenses, but take advantage of something which has already been battle tested. And yeah, security is worth investing in. So there's that. Also, just in terms of OpenZeppelin, like we are hiring for a number of technical and not technical roles. So go ahead and see if there's anything that interests you. Thanks very much.